Lachapelle. First, I want to introduce the Department Chairman, Political Science, Dr. Reagan, to give a welcome.
Well, hi everybody. Thanks for coming. It's a busy time of the year, so that you made time in your schedules to come is much appreciated. Dr. Lachapelle comes to us from Montreal, and it's refreshing to have somebody from another country, even as close as Canada, to come and just share experiences that he's had to sort of help us all develop an international perspective. But isn't it a small world department? It turns out that Dr. Lachapelle's family partly is in a place called the Eastern Townships, just north of Vermont in Quebec. And my wife's family is from the Eastern Townships, so I've spent many a happy bucolic summer in his old neck of the woods. So thanks for being here, and turn the mic over.
As the faculty advisor of the International Studies Association, I'd like to little bit explain to you about the International Studies Association. This conference is possible because the support of the student body include the Student Government Association, Multicultural Center, Center for International Development, Renko Center of International Programs, and the Department of Political Science. Because they are joining sponsorship, so we can hold this big event tonight. First, I want to introduce to you about International Studies Association. This is a student organization established in 1967 to serve with faculty and students of both the university. We hold an annual lecture series of statesmen, diplomats, and experts to invite guest speakers. Our previous speakers include ambassadors of China and Mongolia, governor and congressman of Indiana, vice president of United Nations General Assembly, and the president of Fudan University in China. Now I want to introduce a little bit about the International Political Science Association, which the Secretary General served. This is a world organization for political scientists established in 1949 in Paris, France, with permanent headquarters in Montreal, Canada. As you understand, the study political science started at local, state, nation, and the world. The members of the International Political Association include National Association of Political Science of every country as collective members. The university and research organization as institution members, and the individual political scientists and experts are individual members. The International Political Association holds World Congress every 2 years. Last year, the 23rd World Congress was held in Montreal, Canada. The 24th World Congress will be held in Istanbul, Turkey in July 2016. I hope you pay attention. You may your interest, you can join it. In order to promote the group development political science, we have the honor to invite Secretary General of International Political Science Association, Dr. Lachapelle, as our guest speaker of the evening. Dr. Lachapelle is the head of administration of International Political Science Association. He was born in Canada and received his education both in the United States and Canada, with a PhD in political science from Northwestern University in Chicago. He has been a professor of political science at Concordia University in Canada and since 1987 and 1984. He was the president of the Quebec Political Science Association in 1996, 1997, and as co-chair of the World Congress of International Political Science Association in August 1st to 5, 2000. Since 2001, And he has been Secretary General of the International Political Association, which is based in Columbia University. Dr. Lachapelle is an outstanding scholar and excellent administrator of the World Organization for Science. Tonight, I'm honored to introduce you Dr. Lachapelle. Please.
Working now? It's working. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Chang. Great pleasure to be here in Indiana. I used to drive to Chicago, passing through Gary, Indiana, most of the time. So, and seeing the sky of southern Illinois at the time when the Blues Brothers were making their movie, and the sky was completely dark all day long. So I said, well, I'm not sure I want to go to Chicago, but when you arrive there, you're happy. So it's another nice. So thank you for coming. Dr. Chang asked me to talk about the topic, which is, it's not an easy one, but it's about the global development of political science in the world. And I will try to explain to you first what is IPSA about, and that you know a little bit more what is the International Political Science Association. And then I will go a bit more deeply on that big challenge of where the disciplines stand in the world in those days, which is never easy at some point. So IPSA was created in 1949. This is the International Political Science Association, with a task which is the promotion and advancement of the social and political science. Just about a bit, I will give you more about the history and the background of that. When UNESCO created most of the International Association in 1949, that was right after the war. And after the war, most countries were saying, well, against that, it should not happen. And the only way to stop wars is that scholars, intellectuals, get engaged in a dialogue over peace, democracy, the future of our political system. So that was the aims, I think, and the goals of the UNESCO at the time to get IPSA, but not only the International Political Science, but also the International Sociological Associations. Most of the associations in international law and others were created at the time. So the 1949 conference is an important conference in that sense, and it was in Paris at UNESCO. 4 countries joined IPSA at the time. We were there to create the associations. The United States, Canada, UK, and India. So there were 4 funding associations. And when I was reading back, we have all the archive, letters written by Calder, by other people at the time. It's all handwritten, no computer. So it's fun to see all the dialogue and the letters sent across the ocean and the discussing about what is the future, what should be the methodology that we're going to use in political science. All of those questions of today about international relations and how to be more people like Stein Rockham on comparative politics. Most of the debate was in the 1950s at this conference was more about how to get data. How can we get data from different countries in the world? Where the data are coming? How can we have reliable data on growth, economic growth, on GDP, on infant mortality rates? So that was the main goals of the 1949s. And this is what if you look on the history of social sciences in general, I would say that the 1950s were essentially to grasp and get data out of that. So we have those kind of big textbooks or archives of data, international indicators of things, Bank and Texters and other people who were just working on that and trying to get. Ken Janda at Northwestern in 1960 tried to do a full inventory of all political parties in the world. Ken handbook, so you can have it. He spent all his life working on that, trying to identify all political parties, how many they have, when they were created, and everything. So the gist of the 1949 conference was essentially that. So let's try to get more data, try to get more comparative data, and then we'll be able to enter a more comparative perspective and try to do some analysis. There was another issue also which was interesting. 1954, Calder's published a book called Women's and Politics. How can we get more women in our discipline? How can we get more younger scholars as well in political science? At the time, those who were doing politics were essentially quite often in the armies. They were in the diplomatic rank, or they were doing other kind of research activities in government, but they were not necessarily embedded in organization or national association. Even the American Association had over 100 years. The Keynesian one was, until 1967, was political science and economics. So, or in other countries was political science and law. And so the real discipline of having someone in political science and making political science was a big debate. And I think it remains a debate even today when we look at different colleagues who are saying, well, maybe politics is not, it's only politics, we should have more applied politics of negotiating agreement, contracts, and others. So the aims of the goal that we had in 1949 is still valid, and we still continue to pursue that. So in many ways, I think the first one, we'll go quickly but it essentially does key points, how we develop our world perspective on political science. Well, the first goal of IPSA is to establish the establishment and development of national or regional political science associations. Sometime a national association might be there might be no more than 40 people. If you take my list of national association, people on the IPSA webpage, you will see some associations are pretty small. Well, I was talking about one of them that just joined and one of the last one. Well, in fact, the last one that just joined, it's Mexico. They joined 2 weeks ago. The Mexican Political Science Association. You say, why Mexico now? They were a member of IPSA in 60, 65, 66. But when there was the Yunan uppress in Mexico and the 1960s mobilization of students and everything, it was a high division in the society, and the association almost disappeared. It doesn't mean that there's no political scientists there, but there was political science. So over the last 5 years, we did try to get them back. Even there are still 2 associations fighting with each other. So, so our colleague from the British Association, we have a number of specialists on Latin America, they had already contacts, so through them, we were able to get them back up in the family. So Mexican it's a large association, a lot of members there, and I always thought it would be make sense. We are in North America, we have NAFTA, so the Mexican Association of Political Science should be there, and they participate to LASA and other associations. The other case was Tunisia. Tunisia just joined after the Arab Spring and what happened in Tunisia. One of my colleagues, we invited, and that's part of our role, we invited the Moroccan, the Tunisian, and other members of Northern Africa to come over in Rome. And our president was Leonardo Morlino from Firenze University, and we invited them during the upspring and say, okay, there's this thing going over there. Now, how can we help you to create and build your capacity as an international organization in China? We knew some people who were colleagues in the past, which something I monitored, to be frank, on the number of colleagues who sometimes are put in jail, so I have to write letters. Or I try to get contact with Amnesty International. In some situations, we have done that back in the 80s. A colleague in Morocco was put in jail. But we try to monitor that and help them. And helping them means to bring them over, to participate in our Congress, but also to help them in terms of financing. So to help the colleagues who cannot afford to come over, then we try to support them and help them to come and join an international organization. It was the same case after the fall of the Berlin Wall with the Baltic Sea countries. Same situation. Those 5 countries just came over. The Lithuanian came over, and we tried to help them, and they have a very vivid and very dynamic association with journals and everything. So sometimes we see journals, sometimes we don't see the back, say, of this journal when there is a national association. So we try to monitor that all. One of the last cases we had in terms of regional was our Russian colleagues. After the invasion of Crimea, the association was pretty much puzzled. What should we do now? Mr. Putin and we saw the Russian Association to be very divided over that issue. Half of them were in favor of Putin, say, let's go send the tanks and invade more countries, and the other said, wait a minute, we are political scientists, we should not support neither side. So we were a bit concerned, and we were supposed to have our EC meeting in Moscow, and we canceled that. So that was a tough negotiation, and it did not happen very often in our history that we canceled the meeting. The other meeting we canceled was in Istanbul in 2003 because of the break of the war in Iran. So, and we went there. We said, we will go after. So we are not naive. My point is that we know things are moving and go quickly, and we have to be careful. Dr. Chang mentioned our next World Congress will be in Istanbul next summer, 2016. So that's something of course, we watch carefully, but we do that on purpose. We are political scientists. We are there to promote research and activities. So we do that and try, that's the reason we go to different national regional associations. The spread of information in political science. We're supposed to, internet, all of these things, we're supposed to read and get access to a lot of things. But as you know, on the internet, we get a lot of crappy stuff and everything. But we want to get good scholarship, good researchers, and get them involved and get access to that if they have a good paper and proposal. So we try to spread information, and we'll show you some of the things we are doing in that program. World Congresses, Symposium, and networking. That's certainly important. The World Congress is one of those events. Of course, we follow our colleagues in the sociological associations. They just had their World Congress in Tokyo. Their World Congress is each 4 years. Ours was each 3 years. Now we do that each 2 years on purpose because we want to travel. We want the concept to travel from one country to another as faster as possible. And that's a way for political science just that we get against in a discussion on some of the important themes. The theme of our 2006 Congress in Fukuoka was a very simple question. Is democracy working? Tough question, good question for an exam. How can democracy work in a better way? And we were in Japan, so Japan has its own political system and everything. So it was a challenge, anyhow, to confront people from different cultures, to come over and asking them, is your democracy working? And if not, why it's not working? Out of this project, this Congress, people noticed, if you look on our website, we have what we call the International Integrity Election Groups and team who did go over all countries in the world and try to evaluate if there's a number of corruptions or problems within the election system in different countries. We thought at the time that we had a lot of discussion on should we do like Transparency International and rate each year the country on a democratic scale. And we finally decided, well, we should not do that, otherwise we'll be put in a political situation that we will have to discuss. But we are in an academic association. We are not there to promote any ideology or others. We're there simply to bring data and everything. So with people, I think the idea of our Democratic Integrity Project works fine. We work with IDEA in Stockholm. IDEA is the International Democratic Institute with looks over election as well, so we did work with them. IDEA was an organization created by the Swedish government to monitor the election and get data election and everything. So one of our colleagues, Daniel Tarshi, maybe read some of his articles, political scientist, he was Minister of Health and then came back to the academic world after his term. So he was helping us on that. So I'm giving you these examples to show you that when we talks about the role of networking in Congress, with that's a moment for us. That we try really to. We are still a bit like the Olympics. You know, there's an opening ceremony. Montreal was the Cirque du Soleil. It was a fascinating evening. Everybody loved it. It was great, and they did the show just for political scientists. So it's a real nice one that you will never see. It's impossible to see it with the copyright that. And at the closing ceremony, we have a passing of the flag. So we pass the flag to the other city and so on. So we do that in the kind of the Olympic way of doing things. Encouraging publication of books and journal, that's our mantra. We have to publish things. You publish or you perish. That's what my professor said when I was a graduate student. Not true, you have to publish good books. That's more important than just publish things. But anyhow, we do a lot of journals already. And we promote international comparative research. From the beginning, again, Klein Rocam ideas of IPSA was to do comparative works. That's really why I entered Northwestern. Northwestern was a comparative school. That's why I went there, essentially. You asked me why I went and ended up at Northwestern. Northwestern at the time, in the 80s, was Caporazzo, Ted Kerr, professor, and their goal was essentially to do and bring and create international data. It's easier today with open access and data and everything, but still we have to continue to search for better data, and this task will never end. I think we have to bring more countries and on many aspects of research. So just to tell you where we stand today, we have 52 national or regional associations, over 3,500 members, and different political department or institution which are members. What is a regional political science association? We'll give you an example when you'll see the figures. Can you believe that for years there was only one single association for Africa? Only one, the African Political Science Association, which was based in Pretoria at the time. And Africa is a large continent. And in fact, what we tried to do essentially was not to break their kind of ownership. And most of these scholars have studied in Paris at the time, so we did try to encourage them in a way to get some sub-regional groups, some national association, and try to, most people thought, oh, I am in Guinea, I'm a member of the African Political Science Association. Wait a minute, there's a community there, there's political scientists, there's different languages, French, English, and others, tradition. So now we have more association with the Tunisian, Moroccan, and others that now we have about 10 associations in Africa that we did help. So the numbers you said in terms of increase of associations. So the topic is about what is the state of political science. Political science, we held our Congress in South Africa in 2003. 2003 was a tough Congress because of most Americans, because of the war in Iraq, because of the stress was the disease and this epidemic going on, where they want to travel. So it was a tough one, but the outcome was we tried to get Mandela involved. He was there. So it's the kind of, that was our mission. Our mission of IPSA was, let's try to help them for the transition and bring people in the field of it. And there was a lot of NGOs and other groups also involved in trying to help South Africa. So we tried to help them, but also tried to consolidate their associations. That was important, and there was a division between the black, the white, the Hindi people and others. Okay, that's the overall membership. You saw the figures. You saw most of the Congress since 1988. Maybe the city might interest you. Washington, 1988. We did that jointly with IPSA. Buenos Aires in 91. Berlin, 94. Berlin was right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. There's political reason going there. So we did that because we wanted really to, and the people appreciate that. And colleagues were sold in 97. We thought that we were in a period where North Korea and South Korea can get in a kind of dialogue. Quebec City in 2000, Durban 2003, Fukuoka, Japan 2006, 2009 Santiago, 2012. Santiago was a great one. Michelle Bachelet was the president at the time. She was wonderful at the time of the Congress, and we, after she stepped down as president, she went to work for United Nations Women's on the Women's Group and everything, and then she came back as president of Chile. But the IPSA Congress was very, very important for her, and I think in the sense of trying to get good networks, getting people involved in different women's group as well. Mrs. Ashley, she's a doctor, so she's a practitioner. So So that was an interesting Congress as well, Madrid and others. Just going back to one important Congress we had, and that's why we tried to commemorate that in Montreal, was the 1979 World Congress. 1979, the Congress was in Moscow. And in Moscow at the time, the president of the Russian Association, USSR, was Mr. Shagnazarov. Mr. Shagnazarov was a good friend of Michael Gorbachev. Michael Gorbachev, if you look on our webpage, I tried for years, the challenge was, as you mentioned, that rule we said, Gorbachev was there and other colleagues were there as well in '79 in the Moscow Congress. Condoleezza Rice was there also, in our 1979 Congress. But Gorbachev was so enthusiastic after this Congress, then he wrote in his memoir that it was an important Congress for him to open his mind. So I asked him, and I tried to get him to see if we had gone to Moscow to meet him and sit with him, but I wrote to him and asked him, can you write me a letter? Tell me what was your contribution for you in your life of going to an academy conference. And he wrote the letter, and I read this letter at the opening ceremony, and everybody applauded, and I was quiet, and saying how it's important for academy to meet. Not just, we have our personal goal, we want to achieve our careers and everything, that's fine. But beyond that, Congress and the World Congress is an important thing to promote the discipline, to promote the openness of people over other views and other ideas. So that's the point of, I think, of IPSA over politically, and that's the goal of where we stand as an association and what is global political science today. I think this map tells you, and I can just show you that, essentially. In 1949, 1950, of course, IPSA was created in Paris, the group was here. Most people were European. It was the old boys networks. UK, Canada, the old Commonwealth country, essentially, United States, India. So those kind of British traditions, essentially, the British stock, essentially. And the French Association, of course. Even the French Association was not a founding association. We were in Paris. But the French took about 1.5 years to discuss this, and finally we settled and we have our head office at Sciences Po Paris. As you can see, North America is and this is the challenge I had when I became Secretary General in 2001, is to make this association more truly international and having more Americans to participate. And that's a discussion we had at PAR this morning. How can we bring more Americans and more colleagues and scholars over and knows about IPSA? IPSA is nice for your career, you meet people, but if you want to get the breadth of what's going on elsewhere, well, you come to IPSA or association. So North America is a good balance now. I think that we achieve, and of course we are scholars from the north. The scholar from the south, we still have to work out on where we stand in terms of Latin America. Even we had several World Congress, Chile, Buenos Aires, and others. We're still working there. Mexico might help now, Mexican coming in. Uruguay was an outcome after the Santiago Congress, and Daniel Buquet from the Uruguayan Political Science Association just been elected in Montreal as a member of the executive committee. So it's a way to promote, and he's working now with Paraguay and other country to help and bring other people. Africa, as mentioned to you, it's still struggling. I think even if it's a growing continent in terms of population and overall, we still have to work hard on that side. And the fact of having a Congress in Istanbul, we think that will help, essentially. That's the politics of political science, if you want to try and be there, bring people from Middle East, Northern Africa, and other parts, and get them, again, involved, whatever position we want. I had several students from the Arabs world. Lebanon was a member of IPSA until the Civil War in the 1960s. It's difficult sometimes. We are still perceived as, IPSA as a kind of which I don't know exactly why, but we're still perceived a kind of capitalist, North American kind of group of people. Their perception, there is still that political scientists, we don't like that. They will probably make a military coup someday and will take us out of business or whatever. They are scared by political scientists, just to be frank. I think that's their misunderstanding of what is political science. If you say political science and law, then you start to say, oh, maybe that's possible. And I had some student, once she worked for the Sheikh of the Emir Arab, and she was working, and she tried to convince him, and even he had a degree in political science. He didn't want it, that his country joined IPSA. So I hope that one day those things will change, but it's still difficult. I think we need we're still the imperialist guys, and too much dominated by Western concept or whatever. That's their perception. Japan, Asia in general. China was a member of IPSA until the Tiananmen events. They decided to leave IPSA. We always try to get them back. Of course, I will boost our membership if we bring IPSA in, to China in IPSA, but beyond that, there's still, we know there is colleagues there. There are no colleagues who want desperately the Chinese Association to come back to IPSA for years, but still they face the apparatus of the party don't want them, the academic world, they don't like it very much. So what the Academy of Science is saying and what the politician and what the association is doing is two different things. The Chinese Association and the Taiwanese Association. Taiwan is a member of IPSA, but both are still doing meetings together in Shanghai, and I've been there and tried. So I think we need a kind of a change of generations there to adjust the things. A new generation will come over, and then things will probably be more open. But it's not easy, but it's. But we do try. India is the same situation. India, even being a founding members, there's a lot of competitions or struggle between different regions, different associations in Delhi. So India is still there, but not a very, very active members, or I should say. So we are, of course, it's still growing situation. The fact we go to Brisbane in 2018 is essentially for that, to help those regions, and there are different associations there we know do exist, and there are colleagues coming, Vietnam, Cambodia, Burma, Myanmar. In 2000 at the World Congress, I was very happy. I invited Aung San Suu Kyi to the lunch, and some of my colleagues said, "How can you?" Well, she cannot come in person. We got a video tape that I got treated. People were excited. It's good in Toronto, so I got them and everything. And I got the video and I showed them. It brought a lot of controversy because I wanted to be the big controversy. She's a leader of political parties. I can't imagine political parties leaders. And I was so happy when she got the Nobel Prize, but finally that something happened with peace and security. It's part of our job, something to challenge colleagues and say, here, some people say, oh, it's not democratic and everything, the way the party was handled and everything. But anyhow, so that's the kind of things that we know there is a political science community there. We want to get in touch with them, tell them, here is a place where you can come and discuss your ideas and everything and get beyond your borders. So Brisbane, I think we were